I'm going to go through all the menu items in my Windows app, Map-O-Matic, and just briefly talk about what they are, what they do. So here's the app itself, the way it looks when it first starts up. In the file menu, you have load existing map, which allows you to do that. Of all the maps you've created, it will give you the list of them. You can pick the one you want to look at that time. The next menu item is create new map and locations from file, which will tell you about that, give you some information, give a couple of examples of what the file format needs to be. The location, which is just whatever text you want to display when you hover over that location's push pin. And you can supply the address, street address, city, state, or country, if it's not the United States, and postal code or zip code, as we call it in the US. The other option is just to have the location, what you want to display in the push pin when it's hovered over, and the coordinates, the latitude, and then the longitude. And the various elements are separated by semicolons, as you can see. If you use the address, the zip code is not required. It helps, but it's not required. What is required is that semicolon. It must have all the semicolons. The same is true of the street address. You don't have to provide that. All you really need to provide is something defining it, describing it, and the location, the street, the city, and the state, or the city and the country. That's all you have to have if you supply the address. You do have to have both latitude and longitude if you go that route. And then you would open the file, which would allow you to search for files with the SCSV extension, semicolon, separated values, which is just a text file. You could just save it as a text file, TXT. Either way, you can open any file as long as it's a text file and it has information in either that format, the address with a total of 4 semicolons, or the coordinates with a total of 2 semicolons. Not fewer, not more. It's got to be either 2 or 4. The next one is to create a new map manually rather than having a file that you've created. You would give the map a name. It has to have that. And if you want to, you can add some notes to it also. After doing that, you have a map, a name of a map, but you don't have any locations in it. So you would select add location to an existing map. You'd select the name of the map that you just created or the one that you want to add a location to. And then once you've done that, you can enter a location name. The bolded things are required, the map name that you select, and then a location name, a city and state or country. As mentioned before, if you go the address route, those 2 things are required. It's good to have an address if you got it. Good to have a postal code or zip code if you got it. Otherwise, you're selecting a map name, supplying a location name, and the coordinates, latitude and longitude. So it's an either or. Either you provide city and state or country along with these 2 things, or you provide the coordinates, latitude and longitude, along with these 2 things. And they must be in the right format also. And we'll go into more detail on that when we show exactly how that's done. This is just a quick overview of every menu item. So the next thing, we already did this, the remove location from an existing map, showed how that's done. You can update location on an existing map here too by selecting one of the maps. And then 1865 is simply battles fought in 1865 in the US during the Civil War. So you might want to pick a certain one, Battle of Appomattox Courthouse, and it will show you what's already in there. And all that is in the database for that is simply the coordinates. So if you wanted to provide some other things, such as notes about this, how this was shortly before the end of the war, and this is where the generals Grant and Lee met when Lee surrendered. And then if you want to, you can change the push pin color if you have some reason for doing that. In this case, the blue means that this battle was won by the North. If it had been won by the South, I would have selected gray, or if it was undecided as to who won, I would have selected black. So I'm not updating anything, but I just showed you how, you could update something there. And then you can, and up here, we created a new map from a file. You can also do the opposite. If you already have a map, you can convert it to a text file. Now, why might you want to do that? Maybe you want to share it with somebody else that has Map-O-Matic and doesn't want to enter all that information, and you want to share that information with them. You can select one of your maps and convert it to a text file, then email them the text file, and they can then, having the text file, then they could go and select create new map and locations from a file. You can remove an entire map if one was just a test or something. For whatever reason you don't want it anymore, you can select it here and then remove it. You can, of course, exit from the app at some point. Another thing you can do, let's actually open one of these maps first. Say places live. These are places that I've lived, all of them in the United States, if you consider Alaska part of the United States. But so I've lived from Alaska to New York, several different places in my native California, and then other places in the country. I can change the map style to one of these three things, one of the two things that it isn't already. So there's the road possibility, or I could go with a topo map, not really a topo map, but it looks like one. Or if I wanted to add back the boundaries of states and provinces and such, I could pick that middle one. And zoom level, you can change zoom level at any time. You can go way out, or you can go a way in and see perhaps nothing, depending on what the center of the map is that you're currently looking at. If you just want to see the United States, the contiguous United States, you could go with, that level there. Otherwise, what we have is the help file, which has the about my maps, which actually that's wrong. It's Map-O-Matic now, so I got to change that. But it's just very basic. It says what version it is and the email address you can write to if you have questions or comments or feature requests or whatever. There's going to be, this is going to be where it'll take you to some online documentation, as well as links to all these video tutorials I'm creating. That may go away since it's pretty much taken care of by the documentation and video tutorials things we'll see. Now, here's the other interesting thing. You can copy a map to the clipboard, whatever is on the screen at the time, whatever you're seeing on the map. You can copy that to your computer's clipboard in memory. And now you can paste it wherever you want into a graphics application such as Paint or Paint.net or whatever you use in that way. And then you could mark it up. You could put labels on it or do whatever you want to do to it at that point. So that's a quick overview of all the things that are available in Map-O-Matic. And in other future videos, we'll go into those menu items specifically, step by step, going through how to create the maps and so on.